Today on the Idiot's Guide, we're talking about the many managing choices. Is it a planner, an advisor, a consultant, an accountant, a bookkeeper, and so on and so on? And also, why cursive is going the way of the buffalo. I'm your host, Adam Richardson, aka the Profit Hacker, and I'm joined by the man in charge, Mr. Joe Haslam. Welcome to the Idiot's Guide. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us on the Idiot's Guide. Today is actually marking the very first episode of this podcast, and hopefully it'll be a vodcast. I don't know what you call that, a video podcast. But anyway, there's no rules about it. I'm going to try to cue Joe up so he actually speaks into his microphone here in a second, so I'm not the only one talking.
Eventually.
But before we dive into this really fascinating topic about financial management choices or managing choices, I want to introduce ourselves to everyone. That way they have a little bit better picture of the two idiots that are guiding them. Joe, tell us about yourself.
All right. So I am by trade an accountant, but for fun, my background is in mathematics, physics, science of any nature. As part of being an accountant, I'm a financial manager, financial consultant, and that's kind of me.
Long walks on the beach, anything like that? No?
Not with you.
No, well, I mean, darn it. So 2 episodes in, maybe, but not the first episode. All right.
I am a parent of many wonderful daughters. I've been married for too many years to count. Not that they're not fun years. I just can't count that high in this moment.
Fair enough.
My wife is very lovely and very fun and a joy to be around.
Awesome. Well, what is it that got you into accounting?
All right. So this is kind of an interesting story and kind of leads to what I want to do later on in life. But my goal actually up until my junior year of high school was to be a mathematician and an electrical engineer. And I took my first accounting class in my 11th year or in 11th grade, my junior year of high school. And that accounting class was life-changing. Not for any other reason than it was just awesome. I loved accounting. And I know you don't ever hear that from people that they love accounting, but I did. It became my passion from that moment forward. And so my goal was actually to be a mathematician, to go into engineering, to go into physics potentially. But I took an accounting class and it just changed the course. And so going on with that, my retirement plan, air quotes, is to be an accounting teacher. And so I don't ever plan to retire. When I retire from accounting, I will retire to teaching.
Stay tuned for the online course from Joe. It'd be neat. I think it's interesting to kind of learn what inspired you to do something that most people find incredibly boring and incredibly complicated. I mean, there's not a lot of people who math good. And I use that term in that way because not a lot of people talk good either. So, but math is even worse than our English language when it comes to most people's capabilities. So just to have that fascination or that interest and hunger to just go in that lane is you're doing the public a service by doing it and being so helpful in that category. I think of my wife and myself, when my kids, when my kids are doing their math homework, they're typically, they'll go to mom. And, mom will entertain the question, but the whole time she's staring at me going save me because I'm the math brain. I'm the kid who can, I've been able to do that. I don't quite have the whole like love affair with an accounting, thing, but it definitely is something that, math comes very naturally, very easy for me. And so I can appreciate your liking of that industry. So thank you, Joe. Myself, I have been a jack of all trades. I've been married for a very long time as well, and to a very beautiful woman. And I have a few kids, 3 of them, in fact. And I think that the best thing about it is like, just being able to kind of be at this point in life and saying, I love the family part of being in a family. Professionally, I mentioned I'm the profit hacker. That's a real general term, but basically my job or my description is to look at a business and see how to grow it, and not necessarily do the work. I'm not a hands-on person. It's more the catalyst that ignites the fire in somebody and gives them some of those motivational pieces for them to take action on. That's typically where I thrive. And for me, I come from a very deep sales background, learning what an upsell is when I was 7 years old. And from there, doing things in real estate, doing things and, basically if it's, they say selling a ketchup popsicle to a lady in white gloves, that is something I'm very, very well versed in doing. So, but enough about that. I don't like talking about myself. We are,
I think it's at this point that Adam needs to tell me what to talk about so he can get an opportunity to take a drink, because he's over here. You can't see it because this isn't the video version yet, but he is dying over there needing some water.
So I hate this because lately it's something I've really been working on, and it is that I had a cold bug like 2 months ago, and I still have this cough that just interrupts everything. It makes it impossible for me to say full, conversations without an interruption. And so I just kind of make it part of me. It's like, okay, this is my Tourette's. Don't bother me about it. It's okay. It's there. It exists. And that's why you're going to hear it on the podcast, because unfortunately I can't edit that out. I try every once in a while if it's something nasty, but for the most part, it's just a quick, throat clearing and back to conversation. So, topic wise, let's talk about this, because this is not my area of expertise. There are so many choices when it comes to financial management. And in this, a lot of what we do is, a lot of our focus is mainly business wise. But I think in our podcast here, financial managing goes way deeper. It goes into personal finances, from using a checkbook ledger to keep track of your finances. I hope you don't do that anymore, because we have lots of tech that will help that. That's way smarter and way faster. But if you do, that's still a method. But Joe, can we unpack a little bit about some of these versus other things? Planner, advisor, consultant, accountant, bookkeeper, and so on. What are some options that I may not have listed there that are financial management choices?
Oh, the number is infinite. Just because money involves everything. And so if anyone can somehow put financial or money or something like that in their title, it means that they're going to be getting more business.
Yeah.
And so you have financial planners, you have financial advisors, financial consultants, financial managers. I may repeat these as I'm going through them because there are so many. And then you go into bookkeepers, accountants, and then you have certified public accountants, which is the CPAs. You have enrolled agents, which are non-CPA tax preparers. You have, within the bookkeeping world, you have different levels. So you have people that can do accounts receivables, people that can do accounts payable. You have people who specialize in payroll only. Again, these are just talking about more of the business side of those. But a lot of these same things, if you're a small business owner or you've got an Etsy store on the side, selling a few things on Amazon, all these things come into play because you may not see yourself as necessarily a small business owner, but you need something like this. And when you're looking at a Google search of who can help me with this stuff, you've got so many different things. I can't even list all the numbers of titles that people add to make themselves look like they're a some kind of expert source in financial matters.
I've used different words like analyst and
Financial analyst is a big one.
data. But one that I just thought of is because you said accounts payable, accounts receivable. I was accounts payable for a company. It was a big company. And they didn't call us payable. They called us maintenance authorization coordinators. I was like, man, that's a huge, but we just called ourselves Max. So
I've got to jump in here and just tell you. So accounts receivable clerks are generally people who in a company are receiving the checks, making the deposits, going to the bank, doing things like that, recording it on the books. Well, over the last, I'd say 10-ish years, colleges are actually telling their students that on a resume, if you worked as a cashier at a grocery store or other retail place, to put accounts receivable clerk on your resume as the title of that job, not cashier, put accounts receivable clerk. I have called out so many people on their resumes when I see this, accounts receivable clerk for Dollar Tree. It's like, nah, I can see through that. You're not working at corporate for Dollar Tree as an accounts receivable clerk when the address for the location is somewhere close by. But this is what they do. They put that out there because in some technical way of looking at it, that's your title.
I mean, then I can add to that I was an accounts receivable clerk for a let's call it a liquid adult beverage dispensary.
Nice.
I guess that would make me a bartender, but no, I wasn't a bartender. I was at a liquor store, and I was the best sales. I actually changed the sales model at the store because I came from my first job, which was a maintenance authorization coordinator, but I had to wear a tie, and so I would come to that to my bad habit sustaining, enabling job as a cashier at a liquor store, and accounts receivable clerk at a liquor store.
Got to call it right.
Yes. And they changed. The owner noticed that I was well dressed. He actually made me into the sales side for the wine area in the store because I was so well dressed, and I sold a lot of wine because I looked the part. I was like, yeah. So also clerks, here's a good advice for you on that. If you look the part of something greater, it might come your way. So just saying.
Yeah, dressing up is the right thing to do. Now, saying that, I'm here in my, jeans, but one piece of advice that I always learned, never wear white laces to work. And so I never do. I wear jeans, but I've got my black shoes. I've got my button-up shirt. Never wear white laces to work.
Why?
It's because...
Spill mustard on them?
No, it's just dressed down.
Really?
Yep. White laces are dressed down. If you wear... if I were looking like this...
Checking my laces.
Yeah.
No, they're black.
There you go.
They're tennis shoes, but they're black.
Well, if you look at me, I'm wearing my jeans, my button-up shirt, and not tucked in, of course, and my black shoes. Well, if I were wearing tennis shoes instead of my black shoes, it would completely change the outfit.
Yeah.
To be much more casual. So simply by wearing my nice black office shoes, it ups the level of my outfit. Even though it is generally casual, it ups it to that business casual.
Man, I feel like a slob. I wear t-shirts and backwards hats and I'm like pretty much every day like that. And then I think about it and I'm like, that's what I wear to weddings, what you're talking about. So I'm like, that's dressing fancy for me. Just kidding. Not that bad, but pretty close. Okay, so if we've kind of elaborated on there's an infinite number of choices and we're never going to get to the bottom of this well of financial options, what do you feel like is, you know, the everyday person who is looking for the best kind of advice from somebody in the financial world? I think an accountant is going to have kind of their specific thing that they're going to want to share with somebody, or always do this, or use envelopes to save your money, whatever it is, put money away. Then you have the planner who's probably going to be like, you need to talk about retirement, and here's another retirement option is, are you giving, 75% of your income to your retirement plan because you're just going to be homeless by the time you retire? So, there's all sorts of scare tactics and sales tactics and different directions and attention that they want to put on this. But what's kind of a well-rounded or more of a well-rounded approach that you would suggest?
Yeah, and there are some things that you need to watch out for. So when you hear financial planner, you think this is someone who's going to come in and help you plan out your finances, help you maybe build a budget, help you to do some of these things. Absolutely not. Financial planners are insurance salesmen. They call themselves financial planners. There is even a certified financial planner certification out there that you can get. But all it is how to sell insurance, how to sell life insurance or retirement plans or anything like this in order to, quote unquote, plan your financial future.
Yeah.
That's not what it does. If you want to talk to someone about retirement plans or life insurance or things like that, you can talk to a financial planner. Same thing goes with financial advisors. They're not actual financial advisors. They're salesmen.
Okay.
Financial advisors, all they do, and again, there is a certified financial advisor. So if you see CFP or CFA at the end of someone's name, just know that that's what they are, a certified financial advisor or certified financial planner. But a certified financial advisor is selling you these 401k plans, these retirement plans.
Okay.
That's all they're meant to do. They sell you on investments so that you can get into the stock market. Think some of these major companies like Fidelity, or I think what are the other ones? Fidelity's always my go-to.
Charles Schwab.
Charles Schwab, exactly.
Oppenheimer. I don't think Oppenheimer's there anymore. Maybe it is. It's still there.
And now I want to be clear that I'm not talking bad about these guys.
No.
Fidelity is actually one of my favorite options to go to. Of all the ones that are out there, like Charles Schwab or any of the other ones, Fidelity is kind of my go-to when I'm talking to people if they're looking for that kind of system, because Fidelity offers a good range. And no, this is not sponsored. This is not anything where they're paying for anything. They are just honestly my go-to because they have a good range of options. Their certified financial advisors aren't that pushy. Their fees generally reasonable. They're all overrated, but or overcharging. But anyway, but just understand, when you go to these companies, they're not there to help you with your finances. Right. They're there to sell you a product. And so those are the red flags to watch for, the two really big ones, because those are the ones that we're most commonly used to seeing. The next most common is a CPA. So that's a certified public accountant. Now, a certified public accountant, all that means is that they are certified to offer their services to the public.
They have a piece of paper that confirms they took a test. And it confirms that they know how to do accounting.
Exactly. It doesn't do anything. There have been more times than not, I get a new CPA in, they know very little about the real world of financial matters, of accounting, and even less about personal finance. And that's really damaging, because they're great at being certified public accountants and, doing taxes, but that's it. And so it's really a certified public accountant you can go to get your taxes done. The problem is you're going to pay an arm and a leg. What was it? About 15 years ago or so. I can't remember exactly when it changed. But all of these problems with tax prep, people saw that there were issues with, it being too expensive or there being too many issues related for someone to get their tax returns done. And so people without any certification, without any background in taxes or accounting said, oh, I'll do your taxes for you. And it caused a lot of problems, as one can imagine. Going out there and saying, oh, yes, I can do this for you. No degree, no nothing. And they go out and they prepare taxes badly. Mm-hmm. And so the IRS, about 15 years ago or so, said only CPAs or other authorized individuals are allowed to do tax returns. So they got rid of a lot of that. So that's something that 15 years ago I would have been talking about. Today, not so much. And so because being a CPA is so difficult, they added the enrolled agent. So an enrolled agent doesn't require a degree at all, but it does require that you take certain classes and that you pass a test that the IRS prepares so that you can actually prepare returns, so that you at least know what you're doing.
So there's some barriers that you have to go through in order to handle people's financial well-being, basically, at this point. And you're not talking about the retirement aspect. You're talking about their everyday, or, these people work every day, 40 hours a week kind of a thing. The last thing they want to do is get wrapped up in something the IRS is going like, why is this wrong? Why is this bad? What's going on here? Right. Nobody likes a letter from the IRS. And that's kind of a nightmare scenario. And so that's the regulation. I used to do mortgages, and I did mortgages before. So when you took an ethics test and got your license because you felt good about how you tested, and then, all you had to do is say all the right answers, and you're like, okay, that was really easy to say all the right answers. And then fast forward to, I think it was 2012, I got my NMLS license. And I got licensed in 13 different states, and like totally different game. Like the fact that I had different states that I could lend in compared to just 6 years earlier, I could lend in anywhere. Just say that I'm a nice person and I could start lending there, and watching the really, really bad things start happening and go like, oh, this is bad. I actually left the mortgage industry back then because I felt terrible about the lending I was doing and the lending that others were doing. But then come back to the regulation and you go like, man, I'm so grateful that this stuff came into play because it protects people, it protects borrowers. It's me, it just puts more expectations onto me so that I have to cross more T's and dot more I's to make sure that I competently know what I'm doing in order for me to lend on anything, on a home and these people's livelihood. Same thing goes for somebody who's filing taxes. You don't want to go down the road of tax fraud. That's a really, really nasty situation.
Yeah. And talking about CPAs and EAs, enrolled agents, that was the hope that CPAs, having all this education, having all the schooling, going through this, it's a 24-hour test. It's 3 8-hour sessions of tests.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. Which is why they're...
Is it annual?
No. Just the one time. But that's why, and I think they've even changed it now. It's just 2 8-hour tests.
Still hardcore.
But I mean, it is a lot of effort to be a CPA. And so they were hoping that this sets the bar really high about the educational standards, the ethical standards, all that when it comes to being an accountant. The reality is it doesn't actually do any practical application of the accounting. You learn a lot of the theories. I mean, when you're in school, my daughter's taking an accounting class. Mm-hmm. They're still learning based on ledger books. Even in college, you learn on ledger books. You write out the debits on the left, the credits on the right. You go through everything, manual posting, everything that you do. And then when they get out into the real world, you never actually do that.
I haven't seen a ledger. I mean, growing up in a family business, like I know what a ledger is. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen a ledger since I was a kid. So, I mean, If you just talk about some of the giants that are out there, you talk about QuickBooks, and you're like, QuickBooks has been around since like 1940. So I'm just kidding, but probably close to that. They just took a snapshot of a ledger and then started their business. And so I don't know, man. But like for that to be that antiquated as their educational model is a little scary.
They still don't teach QuickBooks in, at least at the high school level. And I know when I went through college, they weren't teaching QuickBooks, even though it was still a commonly used software. And so and I actually 2 months ago had parent-teacher conferences, met with her accounting teacher. And way too enthusiastic to be an accountant, by the way.
See, that's my problem. I couldn't do it because I'm too much energy.
No, yeah, exactly. That's how you know a real accountant from a fake accountant is the amount of energy that
if they start talking and you fall asleep, you know you have an accountant on your hands.
That is exactly it. So there's the pitfall. There's the judgment test right there, everyone. Talk to them for 5 minutes. If you're falling asleep, you found a good one. No, so I was talking to him, and he actually wanted me to come in and do kind of a guest lecture for a day thing to teach his students how the real world of accounting works. Because he understands that the reality of what's going on in the real world is so different from what they're teaching. They don't even let him have a license for QuickBooks. One license, which costs maybe $40 a month, to be able to teach these kids how to actually do accounting in the real world. But this is the kind of education that gets out into the CPA industry. And so a lot of CPAs still use paper. Everything is still paper focused in the CPA industry. Yeah, and I get caught up in this too. I like paper, but it's just there is so little use of technology in anything in the accounting world that it makes it really difficult. And so that's what CPAs, that's what you get with a CPA. Now, if you have a really complicated structure, if you have complicated stuff going on, yeah, you need a CPA.
Yeah.
You definitely need a CPA. If you're just the average Joe, now I wouldn't generally recommend using something like TurboTax or Tax Cut. I think those are the two major ones. Because you run the risk of making a mistake and then you're dealing with the IRS.
Right.
And they say they'll help you, and that help only goes so far.
Yeah.
But you find an enrolled agent who has some background, but they've definitely passed all the tests. They've done everything that they need to do. And so if it's a good enrolled agent, they're generally going to be a ton cheaper than a CPA.
Okay.
And they're going to get the taxes returned better than you were able to do it. And so from a tax perspective, what you're looking for is that EA, that enrolled agent.
Enrolled agent.
Now again, what I'm talking about here is a spectrum. There is a level where you want to be on this scale. Do it yourself to $500 an hour CPA.
Well, and I think like you also covered the fact that if you're looking at something for retirement or looking for 401k advice or stock advice, or, you know, each one of these kind of holds a piece of that pie. You know, but when you're talking about just general, you know, every day making sure you pay your bills kind of stuff and then filing your taxes every single year, you know, there's nothing special or fancy in the eyes of just the everyday citizen. That's still something that like you don't want to get into hot water about it. So you want it done right, but it's not going to take an advisor. They're not going to know what to do with what you're doing, but it's going to take a CPA or an enrolled agent in that sense. Now, to kind of give this the overall, I know that you and I have had conversations about, you know, like what is a good snapshot of basically if you were to take all of those different pieces. I know that, you know, the industry has really kind of watered down the term, but I also don't want it to be watered down in the sense of, you know, what it can encompass. If you're saying, you know, take all of these different roles, would you call that person a consultant?
So the big difference with a consultant is they are a consultant and they consult with you. That's what a consultant is. They may not be specialized in any one of these things. They may be specialized as a CPA or an enrolled agent, a bookkeeper, accountant, you know, anything along those lines. But the idea of a consultant is that they're not just telling you something. A CFA is going to tell you what to invest in. An accountant is going to tell you what you need to do with your books. A CPA is going to tell you what you're doing with your taxes. What none of them are doing is actually consulting with you. They're just telling you. And so what you really want to look for is that consultant. Someone, it's a two-way communication. And that's what really makes the difference. If any of these groups, you find an individual who, calls themselves, so they have a CPA certification, but they call themselves a consultant, that's what makes the difference, because they're communicating with you. They're not just telling you. And it's that relationship in the financial world that is so important.
Absolutely.
And so anyone that you talk to on here, anyone who has a CFA background, CFP background, CPA, all these, alphabet soup letters.
Okay.
Any one of
I think
them,
I'm going to put my initials just in caps at the end. That way it looks official, but nobody knows what it means.
Nice. Any of these guys, anyone that you're talking to, what you want to look for is someone who's going to have that conversation, a two-way conversation that they're not just going to tell you, because that's a consultant. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of consultants in the financial world because they focus on being a CPA. They focus on being a CFA, an EA, all these different things. CFO, contract CFOs are another big one, right? All these different aspects, they don't tie down to what is actually happening. You want that consultant. And that's what makes a consultant different than your run-of-the-mill anything. And I think that applies to more than just the financial world. You talk about sales or marketing or anything. When you have a consultant, it's someone who is having that conversation with you, who is listening to you and talking to you about what's really going on. And so, but in the accounting world, in the financial world, there's just not a lot of consultants. And so you really have to weed through a lot of these resources to find the right consultant.
I think, the word that comes to mind is relational. Like if you want somebody that, they can crunch numbers, they can file taxes and get you out of a mess of stuff, or, this person that has no personality, that you're just, you kind of like put an expectation in and they give you what you ask, or vice versa. It's they're going to say, you need to do this, and you give them money to do this. And so there's no emotional response on either front of that. And then to turn around and say, that the word is more relational. It's almost like saying, hey, instead of it just being around a give and take or taking orders, it's saying, hey, I suggest, here's my thought. Here's what we should do. This is what I recognize. I noticed something about this. So all these are like different things that are kind of saying like they warrant a concern for the well-being or improvement of. And that, I think, makes the distinction between somebody who's just taking orders and somebody who actually has, that relationship vesting that happens in there. And I don't know if that's not the entirety of what a consultant might be, but I think that's a big indicator or characteristic of it. Is you're going to see somebody that if that response becomes a dialogue that you go back and forth about what's going to be the best move next, you're talking more in the consultancy field than you are in any one of these specifically. And so before we dive further and further into this, I have a great mystery I want to unpack. And not really like it's a great mystery. I think we've all come to terms with it just because the only place that we ever see it anymore is at a doctor's office, or if you see a grandma in front of you at the register signing for 15 minutes a check for, groceries that they're buying. And that is cursive. Cursive has, I mentioned at the very beginning, gone the way of the buffalo. And buffaloes are coming back. So I don't know, maybe cursive is coming back.
We can hope.
But personally, like if I think about what I do, it's kind of a hybrid. There's a couple words or a couple letters in my signature is the only place, or when I fill out a check, because somebody still takes a check somewhere, But But I can't think of any other application that I can't Venmo, like wireless cash. I use my watch to pay for things. I can't think of a single place, even in official documentation at this point that requires cursive. Can you?
No, not really. Actually, and a lot of places are now accepting printed signatures.
Oh my gosh.
Seeing
my son sign is the funniest thing in the world. To me, I love it, but there's a fanciness about my signature. It swoops and swirls and zigzags all. It's huge and egotistical, I guess, but
I remember growing up and seeing my dad's signature. It was the most elegant thing I had ever seen.
Yeah.
He pronounced, he highlighted every single letter in there. I mean, it was elegant.
Like conducting a symphony. It's just, oh man.
And I look at my daughter's quote unquote signatures, and honestly, I don't necessarily want to call him out for this, but it looks like a 2-year-old's crayon drawing. If
it were with a crayon, it would be a 2-year-old's.
Right. But the problem is it's not just a matter of, they're not good at it. It's just, it's not taught anymore.
Yeah.
It's not seen as valuable. But to kind of go along the same lines, we don't use calligraphy anymore.
I know.
Calligraphy is now, a fun form of art. And yet it used to be the everyday method of writing.
Yeah.
And so to see a transition like this, I don't think is unprecedented. I think more and more we should, be teaching them so that it doesn't look like a 2-year-old's crayon drawing, and so that the print is better. But I think it's gotten a lot. We're so moving away from cursive that we're trying to promote the anti-cursive.
I think what's happening though is you also have the evolution of a language that's happening as well, because there are, I watched a little video, because we're in that society where there's videos on everything. Watched a little video of a teacher who incorporated in her conversation like 15 different slang words that are being used currently. And some of them that are almost off the list at this point because they're too old. And like she even references the fact that these ones are being used too much by parents. And so because of that, the kids are like, we're not using that anymore. And I didn't understand 13 of these words. Like, I was like, I have no idea where you're going with
You're
this.
not hip with the lingo, the jive of the youths.
Oh my goodness. It is, I'm embarrassed to say that I don't know, but at the same time, it reminds me of cursive. It's this growth and direction change of our society. I mean, hieroglyphics aren't around anymore. So, it doesn't, we see it, it's still there, but it doesn't mean that we use it anymore.
You bring up hieroglyphs. We actually do use those. They're just called emojis.
That's true.
And so, I mean,
you're right.
You think about what a hieroglyph did. It presented an idea through a picture, through an image.
And this person apparently had to go to the bathroom. That's the reason why that one exists.
That's right. And so we think about it today. No, that's exactly what we're doing. We're using hieroglyphs. They're just called emojis. And that goes along with, other than to take notes, like when I'm on phone calls or anything like that with clients, I'm taking notes on my, lined paper. Again, I'm a paper guy. None of the other consultants I work with, none of the other coaches that I work with, I do coaching on the side. None of them do paper notes. Everything's electronic. They type their notes into the system for every one of their calls. I still write everything out on paper. When I have notes with my financial clients, I am doing notes on paper. But other than notes, when was the last time that you actually wrote something down?
I mean, other than notes, in another world, I'm a singer-songwriter, so that's about the only other context I can say. But even if I'm going to write a letter, it's still, I'm on a computer. I'm typing it out, because, writing it on a piece of paper means eventually I'm going to put it onto a computer, and then eventually that's going to go to the, email instead of mail. Mm-hmm. So unless I really, really want my hand to be sore, I'm going to type it.
Yeah. And with the use of electronic signatures today, you don't really need your own signature. You're saying that that's you and you're good to go. And so kids today, the reason cursive is going away is because we have electronic means. I'll talk to my daughters, and if they're taking notes, it's on their phone.
Yep.
I mean, these kids have magic thumbs.
Oh.
The way that they can type, it's just...
Even my wife has the swipe. I can't swipe on my phone. I can't. Oh. Nope, doesn't work. No way. I have to be like big old fat thumbs trying to hit tiny little buttons and misspelling words and backspacing, and just takes me 15 minutes to write a sentence.
When we were in school, we're about the same age. When we were in school, we wrote our essays.
Yes.
Today, not even math is done on paper.
Yeah.
They have their laptops in their Chromebooks, whatever they are, in class, and they're typing up their essays. They're typing the answers to the math problems. They're typing everything. You don't write anymore.
Yeah.
Everything is electronic. And that's really where we're moving to. And so cursive kind of, although it's ironic that even on those auto signatures, it's always the cursive. It's the fake cursive. Not auto signatures,
fake
but
cursive. Pay attention to the letters, because some of those letters are still print. They're not cursive.
I haven't noticed that. I'll have to look. But yeah, that's why it's going away. We found a new means, and it's all electronic. There's no need.
Yeah.
There's no need to write it down on paper. And so why learn cursive? I love cursive. I think it looks great. I think it's awesome. But for practical sense, there's no reason for these kids to learn. That's why they look like a 2-year-old's crayon drawing. They don't need to learn how to do their signature. They don't need to learn how to cursive. They've got their emojis. They've got their hieroglyphs. They've got their computers, phones, all these things to be able to do that. And they never develop that signature skill. And I don't think they ever will. Because there's no need.
Yeah. Well,
unfortunately,
I think that, I think we beat the financial managing choices to death, which is good. No, I honestly, I'm sure that we could probably unpack that way more. But we're going to wrap up, and I don't have a means to wrap up. This is episode number 1, so we're still trying to figure this out. I was thinking like peace, but that doesn't sound very good. So I was, like, what's a professional sign off? You guys all take care out there. No, I don't like that either. So I'm just kind of in this conundrum saying like, hey guys, thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that it's informative. And it looks like Joe wants to say one more thing before he signs off.
All right. So here's my, choice for end tagline.
Okay.
Check your shoes.
Check your shoes. Ooh. And remember, guys, check your shoes.
Exactly. If anyone has ever watched Shawshank Redemption, you know what I'm talking about.
Fair enough.
Another favorite accounting movie.
And until next time, check your shoes.